we're at Iori's house. And we have a lot of Miata stuff to do today. So let's do that. I'm a rock star with a I'm a hot shot with a man full of team. Got a McDonald's just for free now. I'm a pop off for these cars and these things I don't got now. I don't know the words, but this song is fucking fire. Oh, cool. Okay, so before we go to work on the Miata, I guess this weekend's a very busy weekend in Phoenix. They're having like Fuel Fest, which is like this car show thing. We might go, and all sorts of stuff. So before we get to the Miata stuff, I actually had to come by Black Market Racing to pick up a surprise for Iori-chan. Now, I'm not gonna show it. You're probably not gonna see it for a while because I think she watches this to make sure I don't say anything offensive. So if you guys stay tuned and like stay on the channel till maybe January-ish, you will know what it is. But as of right now, lips are sealed, man. G14 classified. So we're pulling up now. Let's go get our parts. Okay, so we got some not so great news. I totally should have drawn the lines, but I forgot. Anyway, today is Fuel Fest here in Phoenix, or Scottsdale. Yeah. And the shop that was going to do some of the fab work on the Miata is actually attending Fuel Fest, and so is our friend Neil. So everything's pretty much closed. So I figured, why not just change this topic of this video on the fly? Instead of being about changing the Miata, I can give you guys a general rundown on the Miata and why it's my favorite car and how it has managed to keep on kicking after all this time and all that boost. So let's go outside and check it out. I'm with you, boy. You want to come inside, don't you? Huh? 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 Come on, sweet boy. Come in? No? You want me to come out, huh? I'm really not down. We got stuff to do. Come on in. Come on. You can do it. Okay, no, he doesn't. All right, and here she is. Don't worry about that guy. Okay, so let's do a mild overview of the Miata, and then we'll go for a drive, and I'll kind of tell you guys why it's so great. So here's the basics of it, the gist of it, and no, I did not clean anything up. I literally just walked out here and popped the hood, but that's what makes this car so great, is that you don't have to. Pretty much everything that came with the car, as far as like the charcoal and all that stuff, it's still there. You know, we didn't really take anything off. This car was Iori and I's first like actual build together, where we actually took things apart, put them back together, and all that. But I forgot how much this car cost overall, but it's insanely low. Like, I want to say definitely a sub $4 or $5 grand build, and it's been super rewarding. It's just a super fun car. Some of the fun bits that aren't factory that are on it are the Apex oil cap, which is just some sauce. We were gonna paint that white, but we never got around to it. And then we have a Chinese CX Racing Turbo, which is this thing's like the equivalent to the size of like a Precision 4831, I think. It just you know, it keeps the torque low, right? And then we also have the Flyin Miata intercooler kit. We still have AC and power steering and all that. Boost is electronically controlled. This used to be mounted right here, but I think I took this off one time and just never put it back on. So we'll get to that here before we drive it too. But before we get too far into, you know, driving the Miata, we're going to go and fix something that's been bothering me for a little bit. Before we go, let me bless you guys with a cold start. It's been sitting for a minute, so. Yeah, I'm one of these guys. So the thing that makes this car like there's a
pretty cool guy with a side-by-side pulling up. So one thing about the car, as awesome as it is I will say the past few years the car's been amazing. We do everything with it, like we'll street drive it, we'll street drift it, we'll track it, we'll drag it, we'll roll race it. Anything you can think of, we've done to this car, and at 21 PSI for the past 3 or 4 years, this car has handled it like without an issue. And a lot of that has to do with the tuning strategy, which we'll probably get into a little bit later in the video if you guys are into that kind of stuff. I will say though, on the cold start and probably when I was pulling out of the driveway, I haven't seen those videos yet, but you probably noticed there was a bit of smoke coming out the back, and that is something that worries me a bit. So the only real like invasive stuff we've done with this car so far is oh my god, I just love a good spooling sound. So one thing we have had to do to this car, well, pretty much the only thing we've had to do to this car, is we did have to change the valve stem seals because we were getting a little smoke. Those are all fresh. The compression numbers are outstanding. There's no glitter in the oil or anything like that, but the car does get a little bit of smoke, especially under boost, which could be the turbo, because it is, you know, the original CX Racing turbo. It could be literally anything, and I'm just not trying to risk that. So now let me explain that a little bit better. Thanks, bro. I appreciate you. Jeez. So I left my Dishworks octane booster at my house because this car stays at Iori's house. So now we came out to O'Reilly's to pick up some Octanium, I think, by VP Racing Fuels. And the reason we do that, not because any of the reasons you may think, with something leaking oil, with the car smoking, that tells us there's something extra in the combustion chamber that's not fuel. If there's anything other than fuel in the combustion chamber, you're effectively lowering your octane and making the car more susceptible to detonation. And like I said, we don't know how much is going in there, so I can't monitor the exact fuel octane level. So we just do this to play it safe. So aside from like the obvious road noise, this car has been amazing. So with all of the cars that we have, this one is easily my favorite one. And it's just because of what it is. I don't know. One, it's one of the better looking cars. Two, the ride is not smooth. Nothing is smooth about it. Just it feels like it was built for fun. So that's exactly what we've done with it. Is we've just taken it and had a lot of fun with it. And it's held up to every single bit of abuse, and I'm super grateful for that. I run the boost pretty high, but when I tell people 21 PSI, they always look at me like, bro, no, that's not gonna work. We know boost is relative based off the type of turbo you have. So 21 PSI on something that spools quickly, like a smaller turbo, like a T25 or a T28, would likely produce a whole lot of torque. It would spool there pretty fast, and because of the size of the turbo and the efficiency range and all that, it would probably be a hotter charge than what's on there now. In addition, it would probably be a little bit harder to control it and to like scale it in. So for this car, the boost controller is set up through the Mega Squirt. I know a lot of guys use Speedy EFI. They both go through Tuner Studio. It should all be kind of pretty much the same, but I've never had great luck with those. There's always something wrong with the box, like something small. It's always like little things. So when it came time for this car, I decided to stay away from those, even though everyone with the exception of a guy named like Chris Cashian or something are really great guys, and the support was really awesome. It just wasn't for me. I decided to spend a little bit extra and go to the Mega Squirt world, which I have zero regrets about. I ramp boost in very progressively. I'll see if I could put like my duty map somewhere on here. I'm still new to this, like doing everything. I usually do the chopping, and Iori does all the fine edits. So if I can, I will definitely link that just so you guys can see it. I'm not telling you to copy it because the car might blow up, but yeah, it's just kind of how I've managed to keep this car up and running. Additionally, maintenance, staying on top of the maintenance was a huge thing. Cosmetically, I'm not a big cosmetics guy. I don't really care about the cosmetics, but when it comes to the mechanics, I care. This car actually uses renewable lubricants for just about everything, and that's not a sponsor or anything like that. In fact, now that iori's gone, those people don't even talk to me really. But I changed the oil. I don't really know the mileage interval at which I change the oil, because it's more just like, I don't know, I feel like I get a feeling and I'm just like, all right, time to change the oil. So I think I change it way more often than I should. I also use Lucas synthetic oil additive, you know, like the real thick snotty stuff. I also use that. I was using the stop leak for a while because we had a front main seal leak, but I ended up fixing that and all was good. And I also wanted to add some extra lubrication for those valve stem seals, but those were way too far gone anyway. The diff and the transmission, man, you got to change that fluid. Another big thing that I would say to keep your Miata enjoyable and to keep as much money in your pocket as possible is to maybe ditch the old Torsons and upgrade to something else. Not because the Torsen is bad, but just the price that people are asking for a Torsen is barely cheaper than a Gatome, or even better, a Kaz, or if you have an NB, an OSG. Like, the more quality parts you put into the car, and I know I'm talking quality, and this car is a CX Racing Mega Sport car, but the more quality stuff you put into the car, the better it's going to feel, the better it's going to perform, and the longer it's going to last you. If you don't have the money for something, that's okay. Just wait till you do, or hit me up in the DMs and I can probably get it to you for a lot cheaper than on any website you'll find. We can talk about some issues that people typically run into. Not issues that we'll talk about issues that I've run into with this car. Whenever we initially boosted the car, we were in Japan where the max speed limit is 80 kilometers, so about 47 miles per hour. And at that rate, the factory radiator was perfect, right? It did everything you expected a radiator to do. The car stayed cool. Everything was good. Once we started racing a little bit more, that thing quickly showed it wasn't, built to last. So we ended up upgrading the radiator. I'll put every part on this car in the link in the description. Since then, the car had been outstanding until, that is, we pulled it over to the US where people are going 90 on the highway. So to keep up with that, the car started overheating. Well, not overheating, but it was getting hotter than what I would like. So we ended up cutting up the factory ducting and trying to make it work around the intercooler. While that worked a good bit, I feel like getting actual ducting is definitely next up, and I may even go electric water pump on this car, which Mazda seems to have made kind of difficult, but we'll get to that later. That's not what's on the car now. Right now it's on a factory water pump, factory pulley, and it has the upgraded all aluminum radiator with fans and a shroud. When people come to the house and they have issues with their car's cooling, it's typically because they got like the eBay special, which, to be honest, to me, aluminum is aluminum, 2-pass is 2-pass, inflow is inflow. Most of those eBay units are just fine for what you're trying to do with a Miata. The issue comes when they skimp on the fans or try to use the stock fans, or use the little multicolored, like they look like RGB computer fans or something. Like that's just, you're not doing your car any justice, and the price to play with those fans is so low that you're really only hurting yourself. So what would be the point of skimping there? Another area I see skimping in a lot too is the engine management. I know a lot of people like the FMUs, a lot of people like the 3D printed one, the Speedy EFI. I'm sure those are awesome, but I would always recommend just spending a little bit extra to get something a little bit more capable and with a little bit more support. With the exception of Speedy EFI, like I said before, their support in the Facebook group is so good. It's so good. But the fact that I've had to read up and use the support so many times is, you know, also a downside, you know. So now this is probably the biggest one I see with these cars. A lot of tuners will not touch your RX-8 yellows or RX-8 whatever colors you get. Now, unless you yourself went to the junkyard and pulled these the injectors out of an RX-8, which is, it's kind of an involved job to do, your injectors are fake. It's hard to get them to idle. It's hard to dial in cold start sometimes, depending on what village in China they came from. But overall, I don't mind tuning on them. I don't mind driving on them. I just wouldn't trust it. And for just a good amount extra, you could go with, I like Dishworks just because Krista Lamb is the GOAT. She supports what we do. She supports like the enthusiast. She understands like what we want. And Krista is just like, Krista's a real one. So for that reason, I support Dishworks. Before that, I was really into Injector Dynamics. Now those two are like outstanding options, and I would say go with those. Yeah, we got those auto windows in this car. It's an S Special, which I don't know what that means to like the special Miata guys, but it came with cool suspension, BBSs, this roll bar, it's a Mazda Speed, all that stuff. These were all factory options. This was a one-owner car, pretty low mileage. But back to injectors. The Flow Force guys, I've done a couple cars with the Flow Forces and they're good too, but overall, if you just have a little bit extra, just go ahead and go with the Dishworks, or again, hit me up and I could probably get you the Dishworks for closer to that Flow Force number if you're on an absolute budget, like if you don't have any room to wiggle, right? So we've already talked about your cooling system, we've talked about your fuel injection, we've talked about your EFI. Let's go ahead and get in the fuel pump. I know there's a guy, I think his name is Justin Barrera. He's in the one of the Facebook groups for Miata tuning, and that dude is super passionate, definitely knows what he's talking about, and I know he pushes the factory fuel pump pretty far. I didn't want to risk any of that at the time. I didn't know, I didn't see any of his research, so I went with a Dishworks DW300. It's more than good for what I will ever need, and it was a very easy install. They have like an install kit and everything for that. I'm saying all this stuff, but none of this is sponsored. Like you paid for this, and they didn't ask me to talk. I'm just telling you guys what I think contributed to this car lasting so long and taking as much abuse as it has been. But if you want to argue in the comments, you totally can. I'm cool with it. Just please stay positive, no bullying, don't call anyone bad names, because we don't do that around here. And I think the final big thing that has helped keep this car going is the heat management. So yes, we got the cheap manifold, not a cast manifold, but I like the top mount stuff. I think it looks cool. There's no other reason other than, hey, I thought that looked really cool. So we went with the CX Racing kit. Although everywhere on the internet you will see people down talking the CX because the first version did experience some cracking issues. This one has been through it all on 2 different continents in 3 different countries, just vibing, dude, thugging, and all sorts of different things, and we have no cracks, no issues. But the money that I saved with the manifold, instead of going with like an R-Tech or something nicer, I went ahead and got it all ceramic coated. I got the downpipe ceramic coated, and I like to think that's helped immensely over the lifetime of this car. So now we're going to talk about some problems I've had with this car. The biggest problem with the CX kit specifically is those oil lines. Get rid of them as soon as you can. They're no good. They're only going to cause you trouble. You heard it here. Please get some better lines. Now that we got that out of the way. With the CX kit, the turbo has been like a point of, like, I don't know, like sometimes I'm happy with it, sometimes I'm not happy with it. The turbocharger it's good, like it's consistent and all of that. I took it off one time, I must have spun the wastegate actuator or something, or when I put it back on, it wasn't completely straight. So as of recent, I've been getting boost creep issues. One way you could get around that is by just porting the wastegate, but I did not do that. And we were holding boost pretty well with our Mac valve. If I could do it all over again, I would probably just seal up the internal wastegate, because I've never really cared for internal wastegates, and I would go external right off the rip, which was what we were supposed to be doing today, but everyone is at Westworld doing this goofy ass fuel fest thing, so I guess I'll go check that out. But yeah, I've never liked internal gates, just because, you know, it kind of limits you when you're clocking the turbo, and you gotta you know, you can't just like pop it off and change the spring out typically. Well, with newer ones I think you can, but I've always just preferred the external gates, and that is what we are going to be switching to on this car. That being said, at the first time sign of boost creep, I was able to set up a over boost protection in the Mega Squirt, which has saved this car numerous times. But with that, the first sign I saw, you know, boost creep, I went ahead and shut off the boost controller and, you know, did some diagnostics, and as far as any like fun runs or like roll racing, it stopped. So while we have been reckless, we've also been really safe with the car, and I think that's helped tremendously, you know, in keeping this thing alive. That is pretty much it, man. So we got oil lines, turbo maybe leaking oil, and we got the boost creep. Those are the three things that really I'm not really into. But you can find Garrett T3 turbos for like under 200 bucks that would bolt up to this. I think they came in the turbo 4-cylinder Mustangs and the turbo Thunderbirds. Okay, you're not gonna make crazy Greg Peters power, but you're gonna do pretty well for a budget. So again, if I could do it all over again, I probably would have skipped on the turbo, just gone without it, and ordered one of the and found a Garrett turbo. The issue was we were in Japan, and despite what you think, that's not really the motherland. The US is the motherland. We have a lot of the parts here now, so the stuff in Japan is actually getting harder to find. Anyway, to summarize, yes, this engine now has 193,077 kilometers on it. That's almost 120,000 miles, which is pretty low miles in the US, but it has been beat every day of its life since about 80,000 kilometers. And it's still holding on with good quality budget parts. And if you have anything to add or anything you would have done differently that I did, just go ahead and leave it in the comments. But I think we're pretty much done there. So if you want your Miata to last a long time, make sure you take care of or make sure you manage the heat, make sure you manage your timing, and make sure you watch your boost numbers. Other than that, all you got to do is bolt the stuff on and have a good time. If you have any issues with like your fueling or your timing or anything like that, please hit me up on Instagram, or actually leave it in the comments, because if you have the question, someone else probably has the question, and if I can't answer it, somebody else may answer it, or we could just have a good old debate and all grow from it anyway. So that's about all I have. We're gonna go ahead and go check out this this Fuel Fest thing, which these things are awful to me, but we're gonna go ahead and check them out anyway. I may have a video for you guys up on that next. Thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, and I'm sorry we couldn't get this thing a little bit more fun today. Let's do a little pull. Bro, I love this car so much.